Nice. I sent an email. It's always great to solve your own problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So it's just kind of upstream.
There's some sales it's like the segment
of billing. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's really
How
where you can know,
usage
like, that
translates into revenue.
like everything that's where the magic connector
Here to
that's
learn.
what I think really a lot of like the ecosystem is also
A lot of stuff.
Either one.
Yeah. So.
Okay, do we have everyone back in the room? Track, how is the sound check for the live stream?
Looks great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. We have an exciting 3 hours ahead of us for this hands-on workshop. You're going to learn about billing, our new features, and then what you can do with it to power your subscriptions. So I am Gladys, and I'm on the developer marketing team, and I'm joined today by Chris and Tara and many, many hands that are not present in this room to help us make this happen. And you have, raise your hand if you're one of the Stripe billing team engineers. So at any point of time, if you have any questions, these people will be the experts to go to and will be there to assist you. So quick agenda for our time. We will do some quick intros. We want to go around the room and ask a few of you to volunteer to tell us what brings you here today and what you hope to get out of our workshop. And then you'll hear more about Stripe products. We will go deep dive into Stripe billing and how you can power your business with it. We'll showcase a demo and then also provide you the ability to actually build a working application before you leave today. And we'll give plenty of time for Q&A at the end. And then we have snacks at the table if you need any. From a restroom perspective, if you go to your right all the way to the end, you have restrooms on each side of the building. Cool. That's it. I want to welcome and thank Sarah and Chris for being today's facilitators. They're definitely going to help us build it together. But before we get them to stand up here and help us understand billing and build with it, we wanted, a few of you to volunteer and tell us, what's your name and what you want to get out of today. And then let's wait for our folks on the line, like people who are watching us live. Want to say hello? Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, anybody wants to go first? Instructions are pretty simple.
My name's Felipe, and I'm new to Stripe. I've never worked with it before, so I just want to learn how to implement payment into applications.
Thank you. Welcome. Glad you're here, Felipe. Any other takers?
My name is Dave. I've been using billing for a number of years now, but just getting into a new project, and I'm going to use it again. So wanted to hear kind of what's going on, what's new with the product, and yeah.
Glad you're here. We're going to take 2 more, and we're going to get started.
I'm Jacob. I'm looking to integrate Stripe subscriptions into a platform I'm building, and I just kind of wanted to get a feel for what the best practices for integration were that maybe aren't in the API documentation, but that the engineers and the developer advocates recommend.
That's pretty cool. Thank you. If I can recap what I've heard, integrating payments for the first time and seeing what Stripe has to offer, what has changed with billing recently, and then also like what are the best practices. So our workshop today will make sure we touch on these, but if you have any other questions, if you want to see how you can model or modify your existing integration, our teams will also be here to help you. Welcome again. So with that too, I'm going to introduce Tara. She leads our product management team for Stripe.
Great. Hi, everyone. As Gladys mentioned, my name is Tara, and I work on billing product. And generally here, as part of this workshop, we can answer questions about Stripe in general, though many of us, of course, focus on billing. So how does billing fit into Stripe more broadly? So of course, many of you know Stripe's payments product, and we call that internally our Global Payments and Treasury Network, or our GPTN. This is the idea of moving payments around the globe seamlessly. It shouldn't matter if you want to accept a payment for someone in India or South Korea. If you're a US-based business, it should be really simple, and how can we make that possible? So sitting atop that GPTN, we have a number of additional products, and billing really fits in on our business model products. So you think about SaaS companies who want to earn money on a recurring basis, or maybe even a consumer company who wants to do a subscription box. Billing really looks to power those business models in addition to folks who might want to accept B2B payments on invoices. Some of our other business model products are Connect, and they can also be used in conjunction with one another. Think of these as like modular sort of composable pieces that you can snap together to create any type of integration that you're looking for. So Connect, our marketplace product, can be used with billing to do something like ClassPass. So, subscriptions where you're also, paying out a variety of gyms and dance studios. So that's billing in the context of Stripe. And again, if you have questions on any of our other products, we're happy to chat about them as well. So what
all products come in one bundle, or we have to take the subscription for different products separately?
Yeah, good question. So products are generally purchased individually or separately. So you can buy, there's a specific rate for card payments, for example, or maybe a different rate for ACH, there's a rate for billing, et cetera. So really we'll charge you for what you use. So we're not gonna charge you for a bundle price. You're maybe only using one specific product. Really, it's like what you use, whatever you wanna take advantage of, you can specifically pay for that.
Oh, okay.
So what is billing on a general level? There's a lot of subscription and invoicing products available, but really what we are is a developer-focused and developer-friendly platform for managing subscriptions and invoices. And so when we were launching this product in 2018, we just noticed that many of the other solutions on the market weren't developer-focused. It wasn't easy from an engineering standpoint to get this up and running, to make it easy to accept subscriptions with as minimal code as possible. So really in our product, that's our goal. So if there are things that seem challenging for you as a developer or tricky, like we would love to hear that. There's a ton of team members sitting in the back of the room. We want to make this product as great for developers as possible. That is a constant work in progress and a constant aspiration for us. We're always looking to improve. So why Stripe billing? Why not, write a cron job and do this internally? There's a lot of reasons. I think first, it enables you to ideally move faster. So I was chatting with Scott earlier on, when you're getting started with billing, it might be great. I just want to charge $10 a month. And then all of a sudden you add 2 more tiers of your product and maybe add some discounts. And then you decide to go globally. And then, this special deal came along and they want a custom price. And very quickly the options just explode. So rather than taking that all on yourself, having to write all of that code yourself, let Stripe handle it for you, and we'll give you the configurability to get the best out of configuration and not having to write it yourself. The second is just enabling you to grow revenue. So one of the goals that we have for Stripe billing is to enable you to earn more revenue on billing than the counterfactual. So how can you earn more revenue on Stripe billing than if you built the same system in-house? And so we can do so via just the network that Stripe provides. I talked about that GPTN earlier, but what that enables us to do is we have the data from 1 in 2 Americans purchases in a given year, or 1 in 3 purchases in Europe. And so we can do things like our Smart Retries product, where we train machine learning models to maximize the number of successful payments on recurring charges. So there's a ton of things that we can do in our position as Stripe to ensure you earn more money more effectively. And Smart Retries is just an example. The last reason to use billing is the global aspect. SaaS businesses especially have fewer barriers to going global than a Lyft style marketplace where you may need to recruit drivers locally or something like that. And so the barriers that companies do encounter are things like tax, managing global payments, managing global invoices, localization, and we want to reduce those barriers. So with payments, currency is just a parameter in the API. You can pass in a different currency and automatically accept, yen or something like that. But on our billing product, we also want you to send invoices around the globe, have the right payment methods to offer to your users. It should be a click of the button if you're going into the Netherlands to offer Ideal, for example, and having that all work together really seamlessly across the entire platform. So I'm going to chat a little bit about what all the different components are with billing. But the first thing is that we built billing to be composable and modular. So you can use all of these different components to use a probably hackneyed metaphor like Legos to snap them together to create kind of the business model that you want. So the first things to do to kind of set up your business model are thinking about products and plans. So product is what you're selling, the premium package of my SaaS software. And then a plan is for how much and how often. So I'm charging $100 a month for the premium package. Those are kind of the template objects that you're setting up your business model with. And then on the other side are kind of the individual almost manifestations of those objects in the context of a particular customer. So for Kimmy, I'm going to create a subscription for her contract with my premium package for $10 a month. And that will create invoices on every iteration of the subscription. These are just the basic objects. They're, as you again introduce coupons and discounts and taxes and new payment methods, and you want to modify invoices with credit notes, we add in a ton of additional fun here in terms of objects that you have to really manipulate a business model. So at the very basic level, like this is just the core of billing. These are the objects that you want to think about. So when we think about all the features of billing, there's a ton of things we can list here, but really at the fundamental level, it's about how do you create a customer and accept their order? How do you set up your business model so they know what they can buy? How do you then actually get the money from them? And then how do you understand how much money you've gotten? And really all of our features kind of fit into these categories. Just in terms of a preview of both what's recently come and about to come, I know some folks talked about just learning what's new with billing. We launched are about to launch a new version of Smart Retries. So we trained sort of V3 of our models, and it's like actually 14% better than V2, so more money, yay. We're also launching, we recently launched a number of features for Europe specifically, the last of which is actually flexible invoice numbering. So there are requirements for invoices in Europe that they're numbered in a very specific way. So we've launched a sort of compliant numbering scheme. Another sort of big European related feature that many of you have probably heard of is strong customer authentication. You might be familiar with the recent legislation that kind of recent, like a year and a half ago, that passed in Europe requiring a second factor of authentication for every payment. And so billing is SCA compliant and easy to use in order to just comply with those rules naturally. And we also launched at our conference sessions a first version of revenue recognition. The product's currently in beta and a private beta. And if you're interested in trying that out for your business, happy to chat further. So if you want to give us feedback or you want access to early features, again, I think one of the most important things with billing is that we see the product as always a work in progress. We are at the beginning, and we really want to achieve this goal of how do we enable recurring revenue businesses to be more successful than they would otherwise? How do we make it the most developer-friendly option on the market? So if you have things that, hey, this just doesn't work quite right, or this might be a little bit frustrating or janky, we want to fix it, we want to hear from you. So you can always contact me directly on Twitter. I'm just also tara@stripe.com. Feel free to send me feedback. I love to hear it. But if you also just want access to our new features as they roll out, billing-betas@stripe.com is a great alias to email, and we'll be able to send you, hey, I think you're eligible for a couple of the products that we're testing. We're always looking for feedback. We're always looking to make the product better than it was the day before. So if you have any thoughts, we would love to hear them. Thank you very much. Great. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Chris Trudeau to demo integration for you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. Thank you for all coming here as well. I'm super excited to go through some of our demo. To get started, if you go to this bit.ly link, it'll have a GitHub repository that we are going to be building off of today. And we're going to be filling in the blanks as much as possible. So once you have that repository downloaded.
Can you put the link back up?
Yep. bit.ly.com or bit.ly/billing_repo. And then once you're there, you can clone this. Go ahead and do that as well. I think I have like 18 copies of it now on my laptop as I'm practicing. What's that?
What Wi-Fi here?
Wi-Fi is Stripe Guest. You should be able to just connect to it directly. And then once everyone is connected, a couple things to point out here is the workshop has all the information that we are going to go over. And if you have if you get lost in any of this, then it has steps going through it 1 through 7 here. These are the steps that we're going to go through today, so that at the end of the day, when you're walking out of here, that you'll hopefully have your business model on Stripe billing. And then the other thing is, I like to think of like, textbooks in the back have like all of the answers. If you get stuck on any part of this workshop, there's actually a workshop answers branch. So you can just go to that and you'll see in all of the servers, they're fully implemented for what we're trying to do with the workshop. So if you get lost at any point, you can just check out workshop answers and no one has to know that you're using the answers branch. And you'll see kind of like a fully implemented sample of what we're trying to do here today. The other thing to point out is I've done a lot of the client side code to kind of reduce the amount of steps that we have to do today. But I've also put in, as soon as you clone that and open it inside of an editor, I want to point out that if you search for step 1 inside of the code, that you'll actually see each step. If you get lost at any point, we're going to follow along steps 1 through 7. If you get lost, if you want to say like what's step 4, what's step 5, you'll be able to find all of those steps in each of the languages. So feel free to pick your own, the language you're comfortable with. Up here, I'm going to demo in Node. But if you're not familiar with Node, then there's an implementation in all of the languages here. If you get stuck on any other language, I'll do my best to help you. The only one that I'm not very good at is Go. But we have some people that can help if you get stuck there as well. So definitely the workshop answers branch is super helpful. And if you get lost as we go through the steps, then you can check out these steps here and then just search for them directly inside of the repo. A couple other things to get started is if you don't already have a Stripe account, I recommend creating one before we get started so we can open that up. I already have registered an account, but if you haven't, you can go through this registration here and log in. So kind of give some time to, as soon as you get logged into the dashboard, go ahead and let me know, and then I can get started. And if you're who's making a new account on Stripe? Awesome. I'll wait here at this step as everyone's waiting because there's a couple questions we should answer together on how to get started. Any questions so far? Yeah.
Yeah, so just wanted to see a show of hands. People who have integrated Stripe before. Everybody's new to Stripe? Pretty cool, welcome.
For how do you want to get started? Do we go to developer integration?
Yep, developer integrations. And then we're going to accept payments. And for this one, I talked to a couple people in the room that are looking to integrate Apple Pay. If either of these that you select here isn't going to exclude you from doing that, but if you select both of these, then you can also get to the Apple Pay information as well. I want to point out too that we have a new GitHub organization called Stripe Samples. So it's github.com/Stripe Samples. And here you'll see a bunch of different implementations of how to use different parts of Stripe that you can use to pick apart how to do different things. Someone mentioned that they're interested in Apple Pay. There's this payment form modal, and then cards and mobile wallets. And then that is like a full implementation that allows you to accept Apple Pay. So I just wanted to point that out. So once everyone signs in and gets an account, you don't have to activate your account yet to get started with this. But you are going to need your API keys for the repository that we cloned. So everyone at this point, any questions? All right, so to get started, just want to point out what we're going to be building today. We want to be able to accept credit card details, attach that credit card to a customer, and then we're going to create that customer inside of Stripe. And then as soon as we create that customer, we are going to attach that customer. We're going to attach a subscription to that customer. Here I'm just putting in a test card. Something that is really helpful on getting started is we have this Stripe testing page. And in here, you're going to see a bunch of different credit card numbers that you can use to input into Stripe elements to test your integration to see how it's doing. And then to see like the different states that can happen when users are using your site. So copying and pasting this credit card number here is actually going to get us a card that requires 3DS authentication. This is another layer of authentication that some banks or credit cards might require. And we'll walk through how to support that today if the demo gods are with me. Well, the workshop answers branch should save us. So this demo doesn't work, but git checkout workshop answers. And then I'm going to go into the node server branch. And as soon as I'm in there, then I'm going to do npm start. So that demo didn't work, but this demo should work. All right, so something that just happened here, we created a payment method for that user using that credit card that they typed in. We have created a customer. And for this workshop, for simplicity to make it easier to kind of demonstrate what's going on behind the scenes, we've passed the customer ID into the URL, and it's not encrypted, so I don't recommend doing this in production. But just to make it easier to see what information we're passing around, in this, we've added it in the URL. And then as soon as you get to this page and you want your users to be able to subscribe to a plan, you can have them subscribe to one of the subscriptions. And as I mentioned before, we want to be able to support credit cards that require additional authentication. And when they do that, they're going to get this test modal pop up. And as soon as they get that modal, they can complete the authentication. And then you'll see that the result comes back from Stripe that the subscription object is active. And how you know it's active is the status comes back on that subscription object. Now I've sent the entire subscription object from the back end to the front end, really only for demonstration. I don't recommend sending the entire subscription object to your front end in production, but it just makes it really easy to show you what's going on. The user clicks which plan they wanted, that plan was sent up to Stripe, and then that user was subscribed to that. And a couple of things that we're doing as part of this workshop will show you how we're able to charge the subscription and get into that active state right away. So that's kind of a demo of what we're building. Everyone has gotten to the dashboard and gotten their keys all set. And then this step 5 here, creating the subscriptions guide, that's what we're going to be walking through today. The plan is that I'll implement these steps and then I'll wait until everyone in the room can kind of get on that same page as we go along. And then as soon as we're finished, I think we have a break at 3 o'clock, Gladys. Yep. So we have a break at 3 o'clock, and then hopefully you can answer any questions that anyone has. So the very first step is we're going to create a product and a plan. And products are what you sell and need to create at least one of them before you can charge for it. And a plan is like how frequently you charge for a product. So you can have different sets of plans for each of your products. In this guide, kind of this demo workshop, we're implementing a photo subscription service, and that's what I'll be demoing up here. But on this step, you can actually take what you sell for your company and implement it here in the dashboard. So taking this link, I'm navigating to the product section on the dashboard. This might look different for some of you. If it looks different and you cannot find the product section on the dashboard, let us know so we can help you out. Does anyone have a different version of the dashboard than the one you see here? Everyone's got the same. Awesome. That's like winning the lottery. Yeah, you have a different one? right, so I'm gonna put in photo subscription here. You can actually put in what you sell for your business, and then these two fields are actually optional. You don't need to use them if you don't need to. And then once you create that product, you can give it a nickname. So let's say like monthly photo subscription, and then the ID that I'm using for the demo app is going to be basic. And then I want a recurring quantity, and then a price per unit. I'm charging $15, and then my billing interval is monthly. And I don't have a trial, but you can set that here if you need to. But I recommend setting the trial on the subscription instead of in the plan. So once you add that photo plan, you'll be able to get that plan ID, or the ID is basic that we've set, and then we can input that into our demo app. So I'm going to pause here so that everyone can implement their own product and plans. You can name any of these things whichever you'd like, and then we can reuse that ID that you end up getting for this inside of the code. Also, if any of this you need help with, the billing engineers in the room can come around and help you set up your plan. Does anyone want to get any help with that? Anything else I should mention?
What happens if you don't use basic?
They'll just put in, if you don't use basic, it's a good question. In the plan.html file, when we create the subscription, you'll put the ID that you create here instead.
Should this be running locally on a computer?
Yeah, we'll get. Yeah, we can get. After we create our products and plans, I'll walk through getting it running locally. Is anyone using a different language besides Node? Question?
I have to try the different trial pricing model.
So, two questions.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One dealing with the product the pricing plan is. So when you say you add like monthly charges, what that means for instance is the first next you need TVs.
I haven't tried that.
Then you would
I think it
find
is.
different
I think you can now do that.
You can also say like, oh, I want.
It's the same question like that.
Yeah,
I just tested it.
You did? Yep. Okay. So your use case for the
Trial days, so.
pricing plan?
Yep. Can't even do the dashboard, unfortunately, but you can do the.
Okay, yeah, so I can,
Yeah, and then second to this plan here in the subscription. Wait, did you realize that you could click into that?
Different. Now I know.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
you would do a create customer, right?
Okay, so you can attach a trial.
Create customer, create product,
Or
create
create
plan.
product, create plan, and
Now
then
you
set plan to trial day.
No. So now you would create a subscription,
Okay.
Yeah.
and if you pull up the subscription docs,
Yeah, and then you can specify the trial when you create.
Second question. I typed in
Create the
D
subscription.
for basic is
Manage your trial.
just Google straight API docs.
This has the.
I didn't realize that I can click into this. That's okay. I mean, it's actually
The idea is
Oh, yeah, so that's actually very.
Because it's a-
The full next is like written down, so that you can select the first time, but this is kind of weird because it looks like the whole thing is written down. That's the even.
And then.
I mean, read this. Because then you can't put right that, and you know, it's super confusing. Because it looks like it's not working.
used to work at Record Point.
I think right now we're using first part. And then basically your API yeah.
We tried it.
I think NPM
Looks like you can also do. Hopefully you get your. My dad was just doing time stuff.
Or like when it'll.
13 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but Advanced Pro is pretty
Go
awesome.
every day.
So like when you do that, you don't have to
And I know my time.
send them to
I don't have to submit any kind of finance, like a token or something.
Yeah, there's no direct
But
flex.
don't collect, the caveat is don't collect payments with those.
I'm still in the trial figuring that out. I have one idea that I'm not sure about. I figured I don't want to.
So at some point,
What I was thinking was, you know, before you trial.
And what happens if it goes into?
The idea I want to do is like when
Is it recoverable?
It's recoverable, but it's like.
I've read a lot about other founders and like.
Yeah, but the only one who's
Okay, so I couldn't like attach a token.
Actually, it's really good.
Yeah, or something. Usually they offer site buttons like here. And you know, obviously, these things all the time.
All right, I think everyone might be through the plans section. I'm going to show you how to, I might have made a mistake on the .example. If you don't have one locally, it should be in the main folder of the repository that we downloaded. But if we don't, if you go to GitHub and find the .env.example, you can copy and paste this into your own. Basically, we need to have a .env file, which I've already configured, and I don't want to put that publicly just because it has a secret key in there. But you can replace want to rename .env.example to .env. And then as soon as you do that, you can copy and paste the keys from your dashboard. How you get those is you go to, make sure you're in test mode. Really important. You don't want to be making some live subscriptions, although we'll be using test cards, so you'd be all right. And then go to the API keys section. And then from here, you want to reveal your test key token and put that inside of your Stripe secret key. So take your publishable key, put it here, and then take the secret key here and replace this one. For this demo, we actually do not need the subscription plan ID, but the Stripe webhook secret key for later, you can get that under the webhook section, but we don't need that right away. So copy this to .env and then replace these values with the ones that are for your account. And then once you're doing that, I'm going to demo how to get started with a node server. And if you're using one of the other languages in the repository and you need help getting that started, just let me know and I can do it up here as well. So I'm going to change directories into the node server. I'm going to npm install, which will install the dependencies that we need to get this running. And then I'm going to npm start, and it should be running on port 4242. And as soon as you get the node server running, you can open up the browser and you should see something like this. Anyone need help getting started? Yeah.
So there you go.
We have to go. Server and node. No, it's not trying.
Yeah, one thing to point out is I did change directory into the node server directory. In order to start the server, you're gonna have to change into that server and then that node directory. Command just cd server /node. And then once you're inside of there, you'll be able to get that started.
Storing a card for using it.
Although I say, what's the if you have a travel less than 2 days?
These are daily. Looks like say I had multiple cards, like say I had a business card.
You need an outlet.
You gotta move over here.
Yes.
Giving the customer option to choose which
Yes, basically just like any drag and drop. I already have user side of the and just testing the whole process. As soon as you deploy, like really basic, something that already exists, but actually super complicated if you try to do it otherwise. Like so you have Millennia, it's kind of hairy in terms of like making sure it's reliable. What's that? Sorry, I just want earlier that. That's worth it. Yeah, don't worry about that one for now. Now that you're set up. Yeah, it would. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of an idea. Okay.
Gotcha. This ID here. This one cool. Like good news is it's and then the ID is not what you do first. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting though, like I found that like you can, I mean, you can obviously test cards. I can test them. I can't. It seems like there's English tests. There's no test cards. Because like I'm going to try to prevent stereotypes like
oh right.
key to production, and then also test cards work. It shouldn't work.
Get any more?
I almost feel like there should be a test card that works. Well,
I don't have the repo on this.
I mean, I just see that as so important. Like, you need to be able to monitor the whole flow.
Can't really do much, unfortunately, but I'm just glad I know.
Like test standards.
The only thing I was curious about.
Sustainable.
Yeah, I'm curious. Kind of.
So, I'm just doing a subscription for a SaaS product, like a monthly subscription. And there's like 3 tiers.
Yeah, I mean, the idea I would contact my SaaS product.
It's like a side project.
How's everyone doing here?
That's actually
So,
Go ahead and get going on.
essentially, I think what I'm going to use is this new thing that I haven't used
running.
I've used Trustend for subscriptions, but I haven't used this like this page. It's like a pre-built page. You guys have to send people to.
Oh, you're not in the I'm trying
Like
to
checkout.
because I'm trying to learn all the things too.
Right.
It's not elements.
Kind of seems like everyone has it running. If you don't, feel free to call it out. Just going to go through the next couple of steps in the new guide. The next step is to set up Stripe. I've already done that for everyone, but I definitely wanted to point out on step 2, looking in here, how we actually set it up is that we're using that .m file that you put your secret keys in. This is the code that I've already written is reading in that file. And then it's putting it right into Stripe here. So if you see like process.emp.stripe secret key, we're passing that secret key into Stripe, and then that's going to allow us to call into Stripe and create these subscriptions and other things that we're going to be doing. So I've already implemented step 2. But just to show you what the code takes to do that, if you're going to do this on your own, that's the code there. The next step I want to talk about is collecting card details. Collecting card details, we're going to use Stripe elements. And I wanted to explain that Stripe elements is actually just this input for the credit card. And that allows us to have, all of you have websites that are PCI compliant. So if you want to accept credit cards in your website, you can just embed Stripe elements. And then once we embed Stripe elements, we're going to use the result of the Stripe elements when the user types in the credit card to create a payment method from the raw credit card number. So that way, the credit card number never actually touches your server and you're automatically PCI compliant. So that's step 3. So if I search for step 3, this is another thing that I already implemented for the workshop for you, but to show you the code and what it would take. And I definitely wanted to point out, if you want to change things about Stripe elements, then you can check out the element style object here in this code. So if you want to, like, say, change the font, then you can play around with that styling, and you'll see that the font inside of the elements got bigger. And if you wanted to change the font that it uses to match your own font, or if you want to use different colors to better blend in with your website so that people, it blends in better with your checkout forms, you can customize it to the look and feel that you're interested in, then I highly recommend checking out this base object. Excuse me. And in this documentation here, if you click through to Stripe elements, you'll get a little bit more information about how you can style it. As well as wanted to point out that if you're using React, then there's a sample in this guide to get started with React elements. For the workshop today, we've done just kind of a standard vanilla JavaScript implementation of how to do this. But if your system uses React, then there's code snippets and samples here to be able to use React Stripe elements. The other thing to point out here is that it requires you to run with HTTPS rather than HTTP. So if you go into production with this, make sure that you're hosted on HTTPS. It's something to point out, since this kind of feels and looks like it works without that, but that's only just because we're in test mode. And if you look inside of the console, it says here that you may only use Stripe.js integration over HTTP in test mode. So something to look into when you go into production. And then step 4, we're going to create a payment method, something that I've already done as well, just because it fits in better with this this example. Here we're calling this Stripe.js method stripe.createPayment method. And then what that's going to do is allow us to go into the next step to attach that payment method to a customer. A little bit about the code here is that the payment method I'm passing to create a customer, as well as the cardholder email, and I got that from the form itself. So you can see the code. This line here grabs the email from that form, and then I'm passing in that email to that user when I'm creating their payment method to associate it with them. And then there's a couple examples if you want to use ES6 as well that you can grab right here. And then step 5, this is where the code that you guys write is going to come in. And then in Node, you can demo that here. So I'm going to search for step 5 and all the servers and find step 5. So here you'll find that there's a blank section. This is where you're going to be implementing a post API. And I'm using, for this workshop, I'm going to use Express. In order to do that, I want to create customer post API. So I'm going to call app.post. I'm going to make it an async function, pass in the request and the response. And then, excuse me. As soon as I pass that in, I want to create the customer. Something to point out is the script.js file, the front end, when it's calling this create customer API that we're about to implement, it's going to pass in its body an email and a payment method. And on the server side, you're gonna get those in the body, and so here's kind of a sample of what that looks like. Here, so if you want to we want to take this and create a customer out of it. We're going to say const customer equals await, and I'm using ES6 here. Stripe.customers, stripe.customer.create. Wait, not sure. Okay. Yep. Actually, let's just copy this. My memory can be bad sometimes. All right. So payment method copied from this guide, but we're going to be grabbing that from the body. So rec.body.payment method, which is what we're passing in from the body in the client, the script.js. And then also we're doing rec.body.email, rec.body.email. And then we're also going to set this setting, invoice setting. What this does is it allows the subscription to be charged automatically right away to that credit card that we just created with the stripe.create payment method. And then the UI on this is going to expect that we return a customer from this API. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to send that response. I believe response.send and then customer. And then I'm going to console.log that customer to see what happens when I create this. And I'm going to go to that localhost 4242 that I'm running. I'm going to type that in. And then I mentioned earlier that the Stripe test credit cards that we have, you can go stripe.com/docs/testing to get those. Or you can just type 424242424242424242. And then any date and zip code. And then I'm going to hit create customer. That's going to load and spin. And assuming the demo gods are with us. Oh, right. I need to restart the server. I wrote a bunch of server code and I didn't restart the server. So there we go. It's really easy to smash 4242 really fast. I wonder if I'm going to wear out my 4 and my 2 keys eventually.
Chris, I think you're missing a slash in your server API.
Slash?
On 41.
/ create custom.
Thank you. I forget how to type when people look at me type. Awesome. All right. So thank you for debugging my code. You'll see that as soon as the customer is created, we redirect to the plans.html page, and we pass in that customer ID like I mentioned earlier. And then once you do this, you create a customer inside of Stripe. How do you know what that looks like? You can go to the customers page. Oh, right. I'm actually in a different account. Let's see. Also, I really like making test stores. I sell barbecues on this one. I like grilling, so it's great. Great, you can name these test stores anything you want. So you can see that I just created that customer, and that customer has a default payment method attached, and it's that 4242 card that we just created. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to try to help everyone get to this point to creating customers. And then as soon as we create the customers, we're going to go on to the next step of creating subscriptions.
Cool. I don't know. Okay. So, set up.
That's right. Post like that.
Yeah.
Just for, sorry, I lost track of it because I somehow did not have the VM installed and everything is 10 times harder on a Chrome.
Oh yeah, I was really fascinated by bringing I was wondering how that was going to go.
I mean, I got it working, but you know what's funny? Like instead of localhost, I have to go to this penguin.terminal.linux.terminal/42 places. And it's just this weird thing that I would never have found.
So the sample still works on this?
So I haven't done a lot of stuff like surprisingly also annoying. But I think it'll work because I mean I have this page. At that point, everything's kind of working.
Right.
Yeah, ideally you should
You changed service search. Yeah, you also changed
Just server
so I just have to
Yeah, it can be really hard to like keep front-end programming and server-side programming at the same time, and so I didn't want to overwhelm everyone, so I thought I'd just do the server side.
create a plan.
I'm okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a plan today.
Is there?
Yeah, that's correct. Oh, yeah, there's even settings.
Yeah.
Well, I think because it'll be new customers.
That's what you did.
Okay, cool. Hi, George.
It sends back to customer. Like,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Are you guys building something together or?
Well, we wrote a Stripe partner.
Okay. Cool.
Few Stripe implementations.
Okay.
You
build Stripe integration.
Yeah, we're an agency.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And what's your role?
I'm an engineer.
So I've already implemented step 4, and we're doing step already done. And the reason for that is that I find it hard for people to like I have a hard time doing front end and back end at the same time. So we're trying to focus just on the back end. So sample.
What's the most complicated integration you guys have built?
We haven't done any complicated integrations. We added Stripe the link to a mobile app.
Okay.
You set up your file. Yeah, then you're already
But through that, that client has processed tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds now by now. It's been a while since I checked in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sorry, missed it.
No, I didn't keep
it's like a
going.
company that provided like
Yeah, I
platform for schools to sell merch and other products. Yeah, and then also there was like this kind of peer-to-peer, so like kids could list like their stuff that they could sell. There's a combination of providing a platform for the schools to sell jerseys or whatnot, and then students could also list whatever.
But I don't know
games, whatever they want, stickers, that's kind of what they're doing.
Cool.
I see, like later, like 2 days later.
First few days? It's like a trial? We opened up a Stripe account for them that they take over.
Yeah,
it's about ourselves as
just want to. So
they're not a technical team.
Yeah, but if you go back to the docs here.
Yeah.
Cool. This default name docs. Actually, sorry, this is step 4.
The Stripe partner that create it's relatively new, so I wish you exciting.
Yeah.
So Megan came from Twilio, partner, so when she came over here, partnership. I mean, Stripe partnership. She just kind of dragged me over.
That's specifically for
both, yeah.
You go to the
email or link.
Then you can send invoice, and that's gonna send them an invoice.
So if you wanted to collect more information on your customers.
Alright.
Oh, I did, you're right, after we made that.
Did you get a chance to see if there's any like way to test for that?
Yes, yeah, actually.
Like different ways.
Yeah, that's right.
No worries, I was just curious.
So then I don't have to. I just did a project and then
I'm curious about how you do it.
Yeah.
You have an experience. How do you? I guess you could just.
So, because like he's a very wide
ideal. So if you want to go global with data, then you can create just a credit card. So yeah, this is just more of a general like.
It will be like if I have a plan or something, I can but I kind of like what you don't have to touch.
Well,
It's like a plan.
But is it really?
Yeah.
Even with
it seemed like I was trying to do this and then
We're also doing
So is it like
No, that's awesome.
no, it's not obsolete. Depends on where you want to take it and where you take it.
I really got you right things to like where
If you want to take it
We gonna share? We'll share?
every year. Updated with banks in Europe.
For example, they're actually I think
We are already
I know that like my Chase Bank I have like I think they're eventually gonna add like and so the payment intensity where there's gonna be this additional. No, so that's the demo. What we're walking through is a demo to be able to do subscriptions, and that uses a payment method, which is a credit card. But I'll show you.
Yeah, no,
Remember how the when I
so
did
what,
the demo.
I guess obviously
That's
trying to
make sure that and I'll show you how to handle that on the UI. Right. If you want to use subscriptions, yeah. Bad question, but and I think create that payment for customers that actually allows us to
imagine you were
by charging users charge that right away, and that's what the huge and you take that up front that you go
everything. Yeah, I love how it's just so great.
Right here. I think you're almost at it, but actually.
Great, that worked. Then you got your customer ID right there.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were in it, because I mean, I feel like that did anyways.
Yeah, sure. Customer, you can see the plan that is subscribed to.
But you do another SaaS.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that's the best, low overhead, you don't have to deal with physical goods.
The one you just created.
That's what I was thinking. And it just, I love how, I mean, it feels like this ecosystem, like. Basically, you get subscriptions, yeah. Sounds really cheaper.
You don't have it. Next step in subscribing to
I was software on the performance. Actually, optimized the site for performance. I helped developers help build the infrastructure that allows developers to test performance report. You can add tax rates. Tax rates are so if test failed, you have to investigate it or redeploy the whole thing. So yeah, did that.
Awesome. That's not gonna work.
What I really enjoyed it was just like
there.
interacting with the wide
How's it going?
people, like developers I would start with.
You guys working on Apple? Ooh,
Yeah.
I'll help you with that. Let's do it.
You want me to help me?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. I mean, sales.
Trying to
This
guy to help me too.
But I also think it's important to be able to work across with both
Search for you prefer like
just kind of be that bridge and work cross functions because basically 95% of the world isn't technical. They still have amazing skills. Which is actually why I'm building it. Start like the integration either as a practice with cars as far as like I think it's really haven't like creating something as technical creation. I imagine it's I don't see this technical users actually buy something you want to describe something that and then balance. Like I was talking to basically I had a chat with him before I was kind of routed it. He told me how one very integration engineer like implemented auto retry for cards in Japan. Cards in Japan are strict on expiration, so he built an algorithm that based on the bank adds a couple years of expiration based on the cycle. Those cards, even though they technically expired. So I thought that was kind of cool, recognizing the business problem that engineer had seen implementing something that probably caused a massive, leverage for I was really impressed. I thought that was really cool.
This is like a
he's awesome. I only got him a little bit,
but you post this just on the website, and then I serve that to this URL. So if your server gets hit by Apple, when you do
If I don't deploy it, I don't think
it's pretty awesome. I mean, I think it's really cool.
That URL and that goes to their right. Right. We need more. You just copy it like this and say
user,
but an account you
they signed up, made a payment.
I'm always so nervous when I create a Stripe account.
Basically, copy this one.
January 1st.
I just want to go sign up.
So fairly understanding the process. And really, a Stripe student, you see it there.
The only other thing
Yeah, I did activate my account.
That should be okay.
Add service whatever that I'm accounting for, whether it's package or not, even there, it's like every login and every refresh or whatever, like every session I'm getting Stripe. What's been like my favorite place to use this one? I have so many Stripe accounts. Yeah, that I've never seen.
Me too.
How come, like, what have you put it? I've been to London, but only for a few days, so you're really getting experience. Yeah, fair enough. Can't wait there.
On the payment platform,
Very good.
and so
So where do you have to be right
easily.
Okay. Oh, spend more time on it. That's something you can do, I guess.
Oh,
I think it's the whole digital nomad thing, which is so popular. I mean, in terms of geographic arbitrage, otherwise,
I don't need to.
Let's say you don't say no.
yes, no, absolutely.
Live cheaply.
It's fun.
they want to do
Exactly. I guess, yeah, I do.
Make money.
That'll be, I wouldn't be able to. Assuming for subscriptions, it's really
we've got this right.
So subscriptions will generate invoices, which are
do the machine.
it's like
I mean, kind of
for any given week shows with
Right.
like it's refund.
But on Weebly, can you get custom domains?
Yeah. And it's different. It's gotten easier, just stopping further. That was for sure. But it's like great, right?
When you cancel a subscription, you have access to
seen
more
one
access
right?
to invoice you'll choose to prorate. You don't have
But
access to.
that's okay. I want to make sure that we
Like we are the domain
So your domain are going to be
like an app.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
create any
Hey, it's exercise, right? Like,
any
Yeah, okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
That's like.
Is everything
That's
going?
like when I can open my mail.
Imagine your domain is like mycat.com. Have to make
And then we're gonna be able to use it.
$1 million?
The same one.
What is the
If I
favorite
have,
plan? It costs
show you every stripe is the exact same file. It's like
that they like.
but
Oh, wow, wow. What are you selling? Oh, nice. I like that. Really good. I built my first.
So, yes.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I didn't make them.
But that's something going as well. That's next door.
Oh, yeah. Outsource that.
I never sold the product.
So you still have that every email? Because I know it's a pretty crowded business these days, right?
This is the idea.
It's like
So an element.
I mean, now a 3D printer costs like $1,000.
A senior. Employee. So it's like different events
But
that
I keep thinking I have to.
you might
like,
be.
I mean, yeah, you
I
don't
wanted
have to write it down.
You're recycling.
Forty subscribers. Once you get to the option,
Up to you and all.
no way to.
Yeah, and then you have different sizes of the box.
I think that would work out well for businesses. Like, I remember my company's like a cool bit of like
So that's why everybody has their money.
Hey, but you know, sometimes the businesses with the highest expenditure are actually some of the juiciest ones on the inside, right? Like,
So you're getting into.
yeah, I was telling you about what I had to be like agrees to it on my initial idea. Like, it, and then you gotta work on
Anything that will let you customize the URL to it.
yeah, we're just
Do you know Westflow?
Yeah, I love Webflow. Webflow. I haven't tried, but Webflow is interesting on the live stream. Sure.
Gotta print it out, put it on your wall.
Getting the response.
Someone's willing to pay me for this product.
I'm curious from a perspective of, not so much like the exact nuances of the API, but when you're just kind of structuring your application and you have your own data sources and then you have Stripe customer objects.
Right.
What's the recommended reconciliation of those two things? Like you update the Stripe customer object with data every time the customer updates their profile, or you just kind of update it ad hoc? What is the recommended?
Would you start on the side?
From like if I was doing building this,
It's hard, right?
I would. You could listen
I assume it's straightforward.
So we have to provide the
Exact way.
planning.
Alright, cool.
So you can use Stripe as your central source if you want.
Yeah.
And then
A lot of friends
you can have a webhook that listens to the customer updated setting or
Right.
the way that I would do it is I would have the database, I would have Stripe customer ID. And then if I already had some sort of internal like we sign up the company user ID, I would then have a stable one.
Right. That's kind of what I want to do. But like with the email, for example, I assume that Stripe uses that.
Like Google that sense, they wanted to say.
I kind of want to keep that the same.
The one that
What they did is this.
I assume that's Stripe is the API.
So I think Apple Pay would do the same thing.
Getting the Stripe API to customer updates. But I do use it like thousands per second.
Maybe keep Apple Pay for now and just try to get whatever.
Like you could just use the customer API.
I mean, so one of the things I wanted to ask as well was like when a customer goes into their profile page on the site, or like on the website, and they want to see, you know, like what credit card are on file.
Yeah, so if you have any.
I mean, I know the like the last 4 digits of the expiration date are like PCI data. They don't have to. I could store them on my database if I wanted to, right? But could I also just like Stripe API and like?
Absolutely. Yeah, it might even be easier that way. You just don't have to wait.
Right. Yeah.
I would do that. It's fast.
It seems like the email is kind of like the one sticky. Again, if that's kind of like just the customer ID.
To go back to the domain verification that like
It's pretty strange.
Well, yeah. Create a premium plan.
No.
So if you click basic now, it should actually subscribe.
I see, there's no way to
Yeah.
file.
I think this is HTTP, so it's try, but like.
Probably have to-
Like,
Oh, yeah, that's step 6. Okay. Yeah. You know where it is?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is there some way to see failed webhooks on the dashboard?
Yeah, if you go to the dashboard.
Sure.
Yes, that's part of the
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Kinayo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually.
All right, something I should have pointed out earlier is under the developers tab on the dashboard, there's a log section. And inside there, you can see all of the requests and responses that are happening on the server. So you can see where I posted in that payment method earlier and got the response. If you do have an error, you can actually use this to filter on like GET requests, different sources, failures, success failure, request failed, things like that. So you can see like all of the different things that happen as you're making requests and what's actually going wrong. You can look on the dashboard for that information. So here, you can see that I didn't have any query parameters. So then something went wrong. This property can't be expanded. I didn't have proper parameters here. So definitely worth pointing out. It seems like everyone's done with step 5. Some of you might have done already the step 6. So I'm going to implement step 6 here, which is a post request, and then create subscription. And again, it's only named this because the client code that's for this sample is also named this. If you want to make these APIs any name or change the order of things, this is just a demo meant to show you what an implementation looks like, not necessarily for you to like exactly follow. And so here we're going to create a subscription, and then it's easier for me to use the guide. So await stripe.subscription.create, and then I pass in that object. And inside of here, I'm going to pass in the customer. And that's that customer ID that we just created. So rec.body.customer ID. And here I've kind of put together a sample of what the body is going to look like. And then I need to pass in items, which if you have multiple plans that you're billing for, you can pass in that here. So then this is rec.body.plan ID. And then I'm going to call expand, and I'm going to pass in latest invoice.payment intent. And I'm passing that in case the user's credit card needs additional authentication and we need to handle that on the front end. You call expand the payment intent here. And then once that's created, I'm going to res.send subscription. I think that's everything that I need. Restart my server, and then refresh the page, and then I'm going to subscribe to basic. Oh, error. Not read property, create. Subscriptions. Yeah. Cool. So once you have that, oh, the other thing I should point out, step 1, the plans.html file. You have to replace this string with your plan ID that we created in step 1. So I created one called basic. I'm not sure if you named yours something differently, you'll have to change. You have to replace this string with plan ID. Replacing mine with basic. I'm going to refresh this because I need to grab that latest HTML from the server. And then no such plan. Yeah, all right, that's great. No such play errors. Replace this string. Maybe I still need to restart. Right. I think once that is refreshed, you can go take a look at the logs. I think there must be some error going on here.
There's 2 replace.
What's up?
There's 2 spots where you can replace the plan ID.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, that matters.
Oh, yeah.
What did I do wrong? Git checkout workshop answers. It's always back up. All right. That's not send subscription, create subscription. Step 1, basic. Okay. Let's see. Just going to start over in the beginning. See, make sure that the customer is getting created properly. Create customer. Right. Subscribe. Basic. Awesome.
Nice.
Right. Not sure what was going on there. Couple of things to point out is the collection method is charged automatically because we set that default invoice, the default payment method on the invoice. If you can, then I highly recommend setting that because then you can charge the subscription automatically, and you don't have to worry about that. And then there's just some other information here that might be useful for your integration. Awesome. Go around and help everyone with step 6.
Cool. All right. So basically, right under
I got a little stack.
customer.
Similar object exists in live, but the test procedure seems to be this.
Right here.
It's interesting. So I'm assuming this plan, no such plan basic.
Yeah,
ties
yeah.
into this plan,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Is that right? Do you know why they would say some object in system line not test mode key? Like the plan's different, different versus test versus. Did I just mess up?
Like everything you do in life with
Oh, yeah. I understand. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, in your straight back.
Gotcha. And then is there a way to go from like automatically move something to test mode?
Under,
we're working on
billing,
so now it's been very much like
products.
so now it's been very much like
Yeah, you go.
Ah, so you didn't, so you need to create a product.
it's quite specific to building and I think of it because like if you're playing a lot
Oh,
of
okay,
like
so,
no
okay,
paper,
great, so click
stuff
on
like
this.
this,
not test mode.
it will create
That's, that might
migration itself, but building is kind of
So,
exceptional.
get rid of
Okay,
it.
if you set up my
You only
plans,
do
Yeah, you can get
you
rid
know,
of
you
it,
do
it's
it
not
once,
super.
Yeah.
but there should be a better way to mirror from test time and this vice versa.
Right.
But at least I'm glad the error message is pretty explicit, but it's not just for also, it's like
Yeah,
it exists
no,
like
it's very.
very. Yeah.
But I like that.
You have to remove the plates, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I think, yeah, I think they're awesome. I mean, this one,
Yeah.
just like just repeat the steps. And then it's a touch, like I can, like, when I have the tablet here, plan ID, like, this is awesome.
So when you say,
That's cool.
yeah, I would advocate not setting it up.
Yep. This is my first one.
Oh, I see.
And then it's just PROD.
He actually said.
He actually said it's basic. I would say.
Okay.
Probably don't want
I was trying to. There is either for the mark.
Yeah, I'm a strike.
You want to talk to some? Well, he's on billing
How's it
marketing
going?
now. He's doing more of like the business side, of like billing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess come on. I have to-
Okay. What? So,
So I started an open source project to work to use mode development. So you can use your own text editor, but work in like containers that are in the cloud, but have your code.
Let's actually kill it.
The network traffic synchronized. And I'm kind of transitioning that into a paid service as well.
Those are before.
There's part of it that building a service that allows you to automatically connect to containers as they route them appropriately. It's called Mutagen. And so Stripe subscription probably going to be a part of the. Cool. Just out of curiosity, is there things? Because I kind of imagine like a GitHub style thing where you would have like users within.
Yeah, the weird thing about
maybe like the company
like figure out
has like
this
a plan.
weird.
Oh, yeah.
It's so strange. I was
Like
like,
it's obviously you could do that with mapping a custom object to
there's
a database. Or,
Yeah.
I was just curious, does Stripe have any sort of abstraction that kind of supports that model directly?
Not yet. It's looking at.
Is there a way that would be ideal to architect that now so that when you transition to that page?
oh, okay.
My idea at the moment is actually ideally, but I would have it basically a separate like
I looked back through it,
company
everything
object
up there, I
table.
didn't forget the slash this time, I restarted my
Slash
server.
that, there's a reference, but the company would just have its own customer.
Are you doing that?
I think it's
Metadata on places where it's did. So when you press customer, metadata.
We're actually setting the URL that you're gonna, like in this
Charge.
example, like we're
maybe. I guess
So with you probably want to charge just so you get a credit card on the
That's
company
fine.
level.
I see that. What's your, but even here.
Yeah, that's another aspect of it, right? It's like if you have, like, let's say you have someone who works as a contractor, right? They might want to use the service individually, but then if they work for a company.
You gonna go in?
Hitting the Stripe API.
So
Maybe a
the idea right now is to free tier that would be like $5-6 tier. Some certain like a relay bandwidth, use that. And then the idea would be that for companies, you would get a discounted per seat license of maybe like $4 per employee, but with a minimum of 5 employees or something, where you can scale it up. You can do anything you need to. That might be a model that I want to explore. I kind of want to gather more data on usage first. Because part of it is like the ideal scenario for my product is that most of the time your traffic's not going through our servers. You're only going to get through our servers like no active launching fails. And so I kind of want to collect more data on how much demand that function based on.
It's probably
Still the elements.
no, I think that's so. This is
Every
I think the idea is probably running inside, right? That would make sense. Just in response to that one
yeah.
What is
I think for now, customer maybe just allows you to delegate payments to your account to essential. And then there's like one returning. So you have the same type of that, whether or not discount on that, or maybe I can like
So
yeah, what you can do in that pricing to find those
for example, with the customer, that customer ID is
How's everything? Everybody building?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
man. Anything you can help with?
AWS kind of does that's when you just delegate the payment of your account to similar, yeah. I don't remember the exact terminology.
Yeah.
It's empty count or
Customers make a
organization, whatever, but essentially each organization is within an outer organization. The outer organization was like
some of the new
so that's kind of what I can imagine.
Yeah, so you probably don't need to worry about
You would add customers, but they would still be built in your.
yeah, so credit card payments happen synchronous. So if you have most of
That seems like kind of the simplest way. I think that's really right. If there was some like for me the biggest issue with Stripe is just making sure that there's making sure that that's probably my database, but making sure that that's really reflected in Stripe's models of
All right, I forgot on step 6 that I had removed this this code because we're going to implement it in step 7. Everyone has the same bug that I did. It wasn't a bug. It was just that I needed to call that order complete function on the front end, which actually updates the code. So if you, in the handle subscription function, in script.js, if you search for step 7, if you call order complete and pass in that subscription object, then you'll be able to get a completed subscription. Once you subscribe, the user side subscribes to basic. Okay, there. So the subscription is active, and then that comes back. So the error was that I hadn't called this function yet. I think everyone's done with step 6. Use it up. Okay. Leave that for a second.
yeah. So constant subscription.
That sounds weird.
Customer.
Oh, right. Okay. Go to script.js. Yeah. Maybe in this one, call order.
One change.
And then
But you actually charging subscribe to 10 seats. Like when on that order allow that modem access to that.
Like with the So like one of the things is email address, right? Because I don't actually collect much information. If you have a paid plan, but like having to keep the user updates or email address, having to keep that in sync with Stripe, so that it always gets like it would be nice if there was a mechanism where like a webhook would call back and say like, can you give me the correct email address for this user, so that it, like you can keep the email addresses. But I think as long as I guess I could gauge the user updated address on the Stripe customer page. Yeah, I mean this is
I think it's probably personally, like basically, and this is a big one. Oh yeah, so you've got some period of time you can update.
So there's a
type
exists.
Yeah.
Then I can just call
Right.
it.
Yeah. So we'd send you two. We'd send you one. Like,
even then, I'm just trying to add the
description. Just
I've added some like functions here. Or not that one, but this one here.
That is probably like the biggest. That would be the biggest hurdle, where it's like
basically do like just a time check,
like to know that invoice settings is a thing, and then inside that emails
actually like sorry, this is the only one that
it's just like I assume there will be other components.
As well as just see like okay, what are the address creating a custom field is necessary
for pretty much all of that. Anything that's shaped
dependency
on building
like having to go
back and forth. See in the profile, they'll just pull a DocSite,
which I mean,
presented.
DocSite looks really nice. The fact that you can like do like
build his own billing system itself.
Management
as far as like
well, like the user
hit the ground running.
Like I'm not going to be building the
possible ideal world.
the building. I mean, like I would rely on Stripe,
but like
built-in typings and
no, I Stripe elements for that.
Okay.
I see. But you know, if they wanted to come to their profile page and see like what they're doing,
Why do they call it real?
It seems like a very buzzword.
Updated or not, like display that from the Stripe API, and when they want to actually.
Sounds like they're just trying to be fancy.
It's also
like straight.
So normally
Yeah.
every language you have to do like yeah, I don't think I've tried it. So I barely tried to.
It wasn't built by developers. Like this. Not a good.
I'm a little confused by.
There was a subscription params, right? Like you have
still need to include
there's a plan field that's not really documented in the API, but it's available in the SDK type.
Yeah, so we
type
both do that. So like,
Just handling the time responsible.
But that's actually why it's good to come here.
There's no way we can find
you make it through step 6.
All right, this is my issue.
They got distracted. Oh, no worries.
Yeah. So, Chris, if any of you think they're stuck, just look at the network tab, and if you have a JSON back from the create subscription, it's actually good to go. The last piece will be to update the front end and bring that back inside the UI. But as long as you see the network go through,
don't worry,
create
the error
subscription
is
on JSON object, that's probably that you good to go.
Script code to make it easier for the workshop. Yeah, this is only this part. Since Stripe Elements isn't actually on this page, you don't have to call into this function again. Just use the other like this is page. So we went from index.html to plan.
Instruct.js
I'm just reusing the same file.
Non-React.
That's a question. I'm not sure.
Just for the workshop. Don't worry about it. It's not it's only an error because we're trying to call elements, but it doesn't exist on the page.
Okay. Hey, Chris.
Not a shepherd toilet breaks.
No, I don't think so.
All right. That's collateral.
All right, the last step, step 7. We want to manage the subscription status. If users use a payment method that requires additional authentication, then we need to authenticate that payment by passing in the client secrets from the payment intent that's on the subscription object. So how to get that to happen is you use the 3DS test card under the docs/testing, and then get that, let's throw it in the air. So this isn't going to work because I haven't implemented this yet, but I'm going to create that customer with that 3DS test card, and I'm going to try to subscribe them to a plan. And if you get that the subscription is incomplete, so if you're seeing that error on any of your subscriptions, then you want to confirm the payment intent that comes back on the subscription. So how to do that? If you search for step 7 in the client code, then you can use this blob that we've already written in the guide. What that's going to do is it's going to look for the latest invoice in the subscription, and then it's going to pull out that payment intent. And if there is a payment intent, then it has a client secret that we need to pass into handle card payment because the status is set to requires action. So if you look at the response down at the bottom, then you'll see the status is incomplete. And this is how you fix that error. So definitely want to call out too that if the card was declined due to insufficient funds or the card has expired, that you're going to want to call something here to show the user that their card is expired and you want to get them back to where they're going to be able to type in their credit card information. Otherwise, here we want to confirm the subscription with the subscription ID. And what this confirm subscription function does is it calls into Stripe to get the latest version of that subscription, and then you can look at the status of that one to see. So there's already a subscription API implemented here. It passes in the subscription ID of the subscription that's inactive in order to get the latest one. And if no additional information is needed, then you can just call that order complete function, which would fix that issue I had earlier. So once you do that, I don't think I changed any code on the server. Refresh this, restart the demo. That would be an interesting email. Let's see, take that regulatory test card here, type it in, and then create that customer. Subscribe them, and then what's going to happen is it's calling into that function handle card payment. And when you do call into that function, you can complete that authentication there. And as soon as you complete that authentication, you'll see that the subscription status is active. So it was inactive. It came back. We handled that client secret, and then the subscription is active. And there you can see that you'll be able to handle 3DS just by calling into that function. So that's that. How's everyone doing on the steps? Has everyone already gotten to that? Wait, go around and answer any questions around this code. Any other general questions? About 25 minutes before break.
What is the last URL is different.
So yeah, it's the white page.
No, but I'm not seeing.
So I integrated.
Yeah, did you already do handle card?
Yep,
That's it.
and this is the order complete.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
Right now,
Right now, should we go right to
You should
separate?
do
Try to
trash
refresh or go to localhost 14.14,
adb.webflow.io/edit.
and then we'll use that 3DS test card to go to the Stripe testing page. Scroll down here, just go in and then use this card.
Special state complete.
Type that in. Type in any month.
It's not active, further action is planned. So subscription
Anything.
complete.
Yep.
Invoice will have
Subscribe to
base object called payment intent.
and then you're gonna get the modal pop-up.
To represent the intent to collect payment.
Okay, something
Payment
happened.
intent will have status, which is requires action. User action is required.
Let's try to check back.
Gotcha.
Stripe.js lets you pass in payment intent to Stripe.js.
Go to the front end.
Which will automatically show them all. So there's like a lot of extra concepts to be able to that's why it's probably.
Doesn't seem to be getting weird. Yeah.
Call two different functions, one for
Go to
if
your
it is
developer
action
dashboard.
required, there's no action required.
So there's an action required that it's just
So
super
where
to
to
go.
go? What's that? Where did you get the source code?
Go to the
thing
Stripe
is, when you
dashboard.
when you get the subscription back.
Stripe
you look
dashboard.
at
My
its
one.
payment
Yeah.
intents on the latest
And then
drivers. And then if the payment intent status is requires action, then we call the card payment, which is the Stripe.js.
So it looks like it came back.
Oh,
I'm gonna put up the code.
yeah. But then the result of the card payment.
So the result of handle card payment, sometimes there can be an error, right? Say the user doesn't authenticate properly. Then you render an error and probably ask them to insert your card.
So these logs like all
If
the.
it's successful, then
through your server.
show
Yep.
a message that says.
Yeah, it's super useful when you're
Okay.
if you dial into that, then you can see like the post body
That's when Stripe will
and like what you're sending in dash here.
subscription from
Yeah, you see how you're sending it that UWA. Invoice payment and it's expanded.
Okay.
So if you go to your front end code, we can compare to that one.
So this brings up a good point of if you're doing this as a client, Stripe automatically.
Maybe just something might have not, you might not have go to the browser.
Like how do you,
It might be caching.
like how are you aware of that?
Go to your
The way that Stripe tells you.
So basically, instead of, so it basically says if payment intent, you have to handle it and show success, but instead it goes on there. I guess there's no payment.
When I tried communicating again.
I'm down.
Yeah.
So the webhook is just like an endpoint on your server.
No,
Stripe will send whatever it is. I think it's just a JSON.
I'm scrolling this.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's a specific thing about
Oh,
that.
yeah. So back to
setup guide.
It's sent to here.
Subscription got updated.
I don't know.
Some subscription got updated.
So I had it here calling Nintendo subscription one place. Mobile app and refresh.
You mean for, oh, yeah.
From bigger than it didn't need it.
You didn't get it.
I'm guessing that's not the correct word.
Yeah. Go back to your.
Maybe we don't.
Oh, yeah. No, you wanted,
What was the response?
Oh,
status requires action.
okay. Did you do it like that?
3D
Question mark.
Get that. I've never seen it before.
Here.
So the intent is no. This is the European thing. This is basically.
Oh, cool.
Where does it get these?
Oh, that was the other one.
So what you
wanted
Okay.
So you're just like in your, so in the handle subscription code.
Maybe just like card here, restart what? Bring up this. So what would this look like on an actual?
The only call that.
This. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, it's a subscription, so does the subscription not have a? Let me rent the subscription.
If status equals require action.
That I would say work.
No part.
Then we can create a new page
Else. So it's in here, so this is where he's got order complete, or no, that's confirm subscription.
Where did he get that?
Try to go level.
You want something to else. Or that one should work. It's true, so you shouldn't have to, you should just be able to hit refresh here.
Subscription and not passing along.
Yeah, because you already have a customer with the.
So that's when you expanded, right?
Yeah, so you should.
Nice, there you go.
First create subscription.
Yeah. So I mean, I already know that for some reason, like obviously I create the subscription, but maybe don't try.
Just like start your trial.
So it would be like, as long as it's like, I like this.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know you could try, but like.
So this is.
I didn't do that before. Like that got added.
I mean, I did see something about.
Oh.
Where you can start a trial out.
That's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
You can't do the dashboard anymore. Full screen editor.
I'm just kind of curious what that is. But it'd be on a web.
Details.
Yeah,
you just try trial.
Oh.
Denmark.
Yeah. So then the API, you can like.
Yeah, API you can do.
You can start a subscription with the trial.
That's
You guys handle all that.
And then it sends a webhook as it's like expiring.
There we go.
You should be able to do that.
Now every server.
It's desirable. Yeah.
Okay. I figured that. Then how about like, I probably don't need to worry about it. I just created the test key. I just said 0, 0, obviously there's no band Yeah, I mean, super impressive. Yeah, looks like you can't edit the present plan of the price. I guess that's good for me. Yeah.
What are you
I have a.
It's pretty intentional.
It's called
You can do it in the API.
But I can edit the present. Oh, really? So it's right now it's just a Chrome extension.
What are you gonna make?
Well, it's gonna be subscription. So, you know, you create an account. Look up with other users. Posted it to Hacker News a couple days ago, and somebody said that this was playing into a stereotype that women and older people.
Chris, I think it's, are you looking at disabled?
Yeah.
It's power saving.
Power saving?
Yeah.
It's sort of like setting up my laptop.
So this will be. This will be.
Is it the image is going?
Oh, really?
How are you guys doing?
Oh, so she changed it.
Working? Oh, yeah?
Right.
Just in case you need some.
Everybody's got their.
Yeah. I need a few more users before I have to worry about things like that, but. Yeah, looking on.
Oh, okay. Somewhat different. Okay.
What was, it was called? That's me.
Separating tests from actual, like, how does it go, right?
Yeah.
Scroll down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so process for.
To an extent.
Risk assessment.
I agree on document.
Yeah, but you can expand. You can expand. Document the SDK.
Oh, I see. You have to check this.
Yeah, so when like the general expansion expands everything like the API.
Can you not
That a special case for like
You got some complaints.
and then
Sounds like you need
instead of expanding you also expand.
I made this thing.
Oh, that's gonna happen for every single
Handling additional like.
and that's what they say to do.
Yeah. But luckily, I didn't worry about. I mean, I got the idea.
All right.
That's like the weird.
Parents.
Yeah.
So the.
Yeah, that's
That's
like, I was on a
I kept.
I wanna get this one right.
Did he CC the on the Slack page? You see this page?
What an explanation.
Yeah, of course. You can get on YouTube video chat. You can.
I didn't even break it. It was like a subscription service.
Yeah, let's just go back.
You just need to reply.
I mean, it's ready to take that. Subscribe users just for like.
You fixed it.
Yeah. There was a button.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Well, honestly, like, there should have been a test to catch that.
Yeah.
We never updated.
I think people might get confused without it actually getting.
Like, I think the places around.
Maybe.
Well,
And like, the comments on that, the comments, like, was free. The comments on it.
It's a separate business. Sometimes it doesn't have, yeah, that's not your fault. And you fix your errors.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, no, yeah. So I just, I'm thinking like, oh, this one's better. I'm recording my voice and throwing it on their website somewhere. That's what it's all about trust. I'm actually also concerned about
The request would pass, but like.
doing this full time right now. Just respecting
Yeah, but what if you're using Java?
Yeah, Java, the request would probably pass.
Yeah, so I found out about all these hackers.
Oh, indie hackers, that's good.
Yeah, for some reason I
thought like Java was.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I know that
So
you
like
guys
it's-
are tied in with indie hackers.
Yeah, so we bought them, so for the section.
Yeah, I saw that.
Your products and everything carry over from past lives.
All right, we have 10 minutes before the break. And a couple things I just wanted to point out. If you're interested in setting the billing cycle, what that actually, before we go there, the other thing to know that if you want to feel like you're complete, your integration is ready to go, you can go look at the subscription that you just created in your dashboard by going to the billing section and then the subscription section. And then once you're there, you'll see that the status of the subscription is active. The plan is set to auto bill. And you'll notice here, the upcoming invoice is already going to charge on November 23rd. Because we've already charged the one that started today, from October 23rd to November 23rd will have been paid today. And you can see the invoice for that is paid. And then you'll see that the upcoming invoice is already ready. And so I could just flip the switch and go live with this here. And you can see that in the dashboard, you'll be able to see when the user's next subscription will charge. Another great thing to look at is you can see all of the events that have happened around the subscription. So these are all the things that you implemented today. And you can look at all of those events. So what happens if you want to subscribe a user and you want to have all of your users bill on the first of the month or any other date that you would like, then you can set the billing cycle anchor to a Unix timestamp in the future of the day that you would want to charge. So I recommend reading through this on the guide, as well as options about prorating. And additionally, if you want to do subscription trials, then you can pass in a trial end date, which is also the Unix timestamp of a date in the future. And then when you set that, it'll give a trial period to your plan, to your subscription. And then when that date is over, it'll automatically charge that card that we've already set as that customer's default payment method. So if you collect the credit card up front, it'll make it easier for you when you want to do trials. And that is, that's it. If you want to play around with this, these two things, if you want to get this billing cycle set to a different date, or you want to do trials, we can go around and help you with that now. And then There'll be a break of 3 and then Q&A afterwards for any other questions. Since we have a little bit more time and if no one has any questions about those 2 things, down at the end of the server implementations, we have a webhook handler. You can think of this as a way for your server to listen to striped different events that you're interested in knowing. And I put together like a collection of events that you might be interested in listening to with a billing integration. For instance, like customers.subscription.created might be useful, or invoice finalized, or invoice created, or if you would like to add different invoice items on an upcoming subscription, then you can get a upcoming invoice.upcoming webhook notification and then do some sort of action on that invoice. So definitely go read more about Stripe billing webhooks and using them for different common use cases and things. And that's the guide there. Yeah.
How's everyone doing?
Great.
Everybody up to the last step? Yeah? Or we still have a few more working through? Okay, so we're gonna take about a 10 minutes break. Congratulations on building your store and your subscription. Let's hope the money starts flowing in fast. Okay, so we have some refreshments right behind you. Kim already found them. So please help yourself. Again, the bathroom on the right-hand side on both sides of the wall. If you need anything, feel free to ask. I will encourage to walk around and then we'll resume in about 10 minutes.
What's the PR kind of customer straight?
Is there a way to make payments from my Stripe? Like say I charge users, but I also like to subscribe to somebody.
I was curious, because like, I mean, obviously like readability and then there's Stripe as a payment. You know, I think I was just talking to one. So
I didn't think so.
There's like required reviewers based on the code base. And sometimes like you have to review with the 24 hours. And then most of the time you actually wait for like 24 hours to like make it really.
I could use Stripe as like pretty instead of I guess we're kind of doing it.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool because you also, you know, you have some YouTube workers right now. And so you can watch some of the stuff that's good. Right, right.
So this is yeah, like guide you can extract
of course. I was like working with, I mean, what percent of Stripe are remote and file? I guess maybe the billing teams can scroll down, mostly in San Francisco.
I think that effectively is
Forward events here.
Oh, okay.
Sure, but I can use that car anywhere it needs to or whatever.
Then you'll be able to see those events coming in real time.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm curious because I think you've done a really good job. It's a hub. It's not like a bunch of just people working. It's like important. It's critical that you.
And like the entire team
Call it if I set up with somebody.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
they have good practice.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like that's the only way to do both. Either you go all in or you don't go in at all. Because otherwise you're kind of in this limbo where the people who are remote kind of get lonely.
Here you would set up the
Try like
Absolutely.
always like dial
Absolutely,
in, make
yes.
sure that they can hear you straight. Like take notes during this meeting and send it out.
Exactly.
And each other would do
Yeah, I mean, it's also just critical for, you know, as a business where if you're gonna expand, you're gonna have people multiple time zones in so many different countries, so you can't, everything can't be live.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the goal, right?
I'll set it for
Anywhere on Earth, so.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And, you know, obviously hiring makes hiring a little easier. I heard you guys might move to South San Francisco though, to be more space. I don't know if you've heard that, but is it happening, you know?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. It's kind of crazy how like, yeah, no, it's insane. I mean, you got a pretty nice building though. I'm sure you'll miss if you do end up staying on the commute, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think I got more. And like expansions episodes, like project on this one building, like no one will come like 2,000 people.
No, exactly. Yeah, and there's no like any real estate around here is going to be just as expensive, if not more.
You want to make a phone call? Oh, great. I don't know. You might.
Which open up a photo. No one's up. No one's that would turn maybe we should be here late.
I think.
You want something to eat?
There are some other plans. Not real. When I drag and drop this file, development will be placed in a plan. That's
I was using the product at all,
I
right?
think it is interpreting our thing as if we're creating a UI
Oh,
load file instead of
initially.
us being able to. But then why would they be restricted?
I'm still trying to like practice how to keep that data in sync as well. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, can we? Out of curiosity, is there a way to?
Just trying to help you out.
Open up the billing docs. You want to do multi-plan? Right here. Well,
Oh, I use this.
okay, and then billing.
Sorry,
Yep. Multiple plan. So you pass in 2 plans.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The one plan could be metered bill. The other one could be value like flat rate or anything like that. And then if you want to do they're setting quantity. So multiple quantities.
Tomorrow morning. From like 9 to 10.
And then there would be like quantity.
Oh, that's Friday. Yeah.
Then, but that will be consolidated on the same invoice at the end of the month. Perfect.
Yeah, you can actually change the demo to subscribe. If you make multiple plans
On the creation.
you can change the demo code that we've just done to actually in this in that array. Yeah. No. Here. Okay. So just add another plan here.
And then to it.
Hey.
Now that we can create an external sort of website for it, fulfill those requirements.
Does Webflow have a Stripe integration?
I believe they do, but we want to ensure that we are.
Oh, web. There we go. Yeah, I've used tutorial, I think. Oh. Yeah, if you support Stripe, check out your data today.
Yes, I actually added that right here.
Yep.
So that's the reason we do that.
Yeah, this is probably what you're looking for.
You
won't have to do any coding, you'll just redirect
You don't always
Stripe.
return the same token that we store in a database.
Here.
Because you want to return the token original.
Thank
game methods are card game with argument, like maybe at higher levels. Cards are cards are immutable inside Stripe. Immutable outside. Inside Stripe, they're immutable. Every time you update a card, that card is pointed to the parent.
So why did
Original card. But so the version, like, oh wait, I'm modified. Actually, only the original card. Right. But in our case,
Hi guys, I have more snacks over here. Woo-hoo! Thank you.
we actually store the token, so the latest.
Right. And then you select
Sorry.
So that's like
I recommend yeah, it's only
I
just load is that called, right? Yeah, if you want to test it,
this is
doing
Yeah, you can. One, I have a lot. That one's
this
This one is regular. This one is
Like the general probably still right. Like I was so surprised like today. That's true. But like today I was so surprised.
Yeah, it's
if you just did this is just gonna be like
I can leave you this and those.
Can you go back to the command line?
Maintaining a house.
You'll see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like
So now you just right. Yeah, there are
Set a treasure island.
Yeah, I didn't say they
forward to.
That'd be nice. I mean, I'm sure. Imagine like some
So
stuff.
you want to change that
Shops
to
where you go.
2 and then /.
Yeah.
One good cup.
All right, let's do this. We can always change.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's separate, yeah.
You have like a common area, like something.
Yeah, go back to
Just basically print this.
Yeah.
But it was separate.
Yeah, it's a different crowd.
Lots of family. Some companies are even like opening an office in East Bay in one area, so like the other workers gotta choose. I can definitely see that being like, you know, how you, and not just here, like also one in South Bay.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Another was like from South Bay to even to here, which is like really close to South Bay. So many areas, right? Like, it can be like, you don't live near the station, you encounter delays, the park was delayed.
Oh, right.
It's not on the ferry. That makes sense. Your server. You're actually opening up a ferry from.
Okay, like, and then there's another test.
Yeah, no, I don't know anyone.
You could make sure that you can.
But you won't need,
Look at the web.
you won't need the CLI because you've already exposed that URL.
Exactly.
Right, you can just have it go to wherever you want.
Those are multi-kegs and those are fabulous. These are turkey meatballs, and they're have a glaze on them with the tab and it's okay too. There's this thing I do called cooking. I like to feed everybody. Give me those. You're welcome to enjoy.
Yeah, I think we had.
I'm coming down
come this way to entice the people that's down here, so you
Little
guys
bit.
can smell the food.
That's what I get you.
Yeah, baby.
So these are 13.
Yeah. Some fun. We had originally made a
I know, 'cause you were all
for kids, but a lot of people was like, let's keep them for catering stuff. And I was like, you see?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you do it, we do it.
My whole staff is waiting to see what y'all don't eat. You guys are great. It's a beef, it's beef, it's a pigs in a blanket is what it's called. The hummus right there, the one that Ken's getting is a tomato hummus. The other one is a plain hummus. And then if somebody is really adventurous, I have a spicy garlic one. I didn't get it out, but if you decide that you want it, you're more than welcome to have it. They just look too much alike. Somebody looks like they
You can get oil.
See, there you go. Do it. Somebody looks
Those are turkey meatballs?
Yes, those are
Turkey
turkey meatballs. And they have a wonderful glaze on them. I want to say that the beef hot dogs is allowed, but I need to call about that because I think we ordered that specifically.
Do you live in San Francisco?
The-
Oh, cool. I live in Terre Haute.
Yeah.
Like literally on the border of 20th and Mississippi. You know where that is?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard of Mississippi. Like, I like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's just literally right after the bridge.
I'm on 22nd.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great neighborhood. Have you been to Marcella's?
Oh, the lasagna place? It's only open on weekdays.
Yes, it is hard to go to, but it is 100% worth it.
Yeah, I saw the rating.
Lasagna
It's like
is-
crazy.
It's phenomenal. It's mind blowing. And like it's run by this father-son Italian duo. We're just like the friendliest people you'll ever meet. It's a must do. Yeah. So if you ever work from home one day, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do a remote work day. So yeah, I think like once I do that, I'll probably go there.
That's probably my favorite restaurant in the area, honestly. Like, I think Gannon's. I don't know if you've been to Gannon. That's nice for a quick bite. That's up the hill, so it's kind of annoying to do.
Yeah, I've seen it around too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a fast food kind of place. Right?
It is, yeah. It's like gyros and they have good gyros and good burgers. Yeah, but it's really nice. It's like where like the local like cops will come and like the construction workers like it's like the in the know place. It's like super like casual, but it's the food's solid.
Even a neighbor made it.
Yes.
That place is so good.
I had a coworker who used to eat that like every week on the way to work.
Yeah.
It is. It's phenomenal. It's, everything they make is just so good.
You know what? That
What are
just
your other
makes
favorite
my whole heart
spots?
happy. Whenever I pay someone something, they
We've
do
been living there for like
I get it mixed up.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate that.
Do you live in like a loft or one of the newer apartment
Those are your
buildings?
apartments, yeah. It's like hard to get like a place.
Yeah, I was lucky. My place is 100 years old. So it's pretty great. It's a balance. Yeah.
But
You can say so much more when you do like one of my friends lives in San Bruno and commutes like it pays $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, I pay $13.50, but I split one plus with my girlfriend. So like, and that's like a pretty big. That's pretty big.
Welcome to the side.
Yeah. And it's like it has a bonus room, like it has a formal dining room that we kind of see. So it's like a lot of space for a typical one. The bathroom is like a closet.
Okay.
It's just like it's a 1920s and it does it.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
big, so.
It's like a Victorian home. Like
It's like a four one-bedroom apartment. Like each I'm not gonna lie, each unit is just like a parent with each other. It's just 2 levels. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I just love how Mission Bay is the issue with Jason are open now. Everything's been growing a lot. And then there's also that Boston place. I checked out and the climbing gym. Maybe we'll check that out too.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty popular.
It's really popular. It's so busy. Like every week, I do like that.
Oh yeah.
I started going through it.
Oh, you did go there?
Yeah, I've been there a couple times now.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's really fun.
How was the meatballs, Kimmy? So good. Okay.
It's like pretty easy to get to Boulder. Yeah, I feel like you gotta overcome your fear of heights, but you gotta jump off the end.
Yeah.
Good. Ramon knows. Don't tell.
Yeah, I mean, I was also thinking of joining. I don't know if you know UCSF Mission Bay has a pretty nice gym.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I've been thinking of joining that. And that's
They have a pool too, I think, right?
they do. They have an outdoor pool on the roof and an indoor pool. And some squash courts compared to that. So it's actually a pretty solid gym, and it's not like
Of
super
course, you know
expensive. I think
why?
it's like one.
When I first started here, we have so many young people here that are
It's less busy
single.
because you know, a lot of their clientele is like people working on
Not even
campus,
waitresses.
students who have like regular business
You know what I'm
hours.
saying? So I want
kinda
people
nice
to feel that. I feel that for real, like I want you to enjoy it.
Every time.
So I've enjoyed it.
Grab the photo. I heard you say that every time.
They're really, they're on.
I met a lady yesterday.
They
She
were
was
actually
like,
under construction.
"Oh, I used to
They're
be in
beginning it, but I think they're done now.
Yeah, they finished it. Like, I was
"That's my
like,
bag."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've been meaning to go. I actually found, so while they're in construction,
I would love to. I have been there.
no one ever uses
Yeah.
it. It's down in Beach.
Structure is
called like
like
Youngblood. So if you're on like a less busy court,
And I'm like, "That's when I-"
literally every time we've gone, there's either been 0 people there or 1 person. Like most of the time, there's no one. It's really nice. It can be hard to find, but how are the procurement? Are they pretty busy now? Or are they?
So my very first prescription I've ever had in my life, prescription, my ongoing constant prescription I got.
Oh, really? They started that?
I never had glasses until I wrote her.
Okay,
And I was so scared to
I was
go.
trialing that for some courts, but I didn't know.
So she scheduled it. She says, my aunt needs this. So I call her
Yeah,
my
I mean,
niece
it's like
now.
more sense. They used to play in high school.
You know that's so comforting me though, because I don't play eye doctor, so.
Oh, okay.
I go to the bathroom.
I was so scared.
Yeah,
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
I like her. I like her.
You were braver than I was.
I just love you.
But the brand is also really nice.
You seen how I just was shocked
Different
that
brand.
day. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's a lot busier. I kind of like coming home and just being. Have you been to Chase Center yet? I went to, they're having an open practice for lawyers, so it's like a $5 ticket, just to check it out. It's really nice. It's, just like an amazing studio. Yeah, I mean, hey, money's talks, right? Like, put enough money into it. But no, it's impressive.
I took some meeting party during construction months, and like there's so many people like even on the weekend, like grinding and
Yeah,
trying to get up there.
nonstop. Yeah, I used to, my bike, but that was my bike ride from work, and yeah,
It doesn't sound weird, but I've never
how
had that.
much. It's like stunning stadium.
Always wanted to
Here's the best guy around. It's right here. Sure. Hour day. There's only 2, so he's one of them.
The Strike 15.
Yeah, right.
Believe it or not,
He's implementing
On a break from coding.
okay.
He was pretty good at
What time did it say?
building subscriptions.
Oh, yeah. That's not bad.
I was kind of confused about some of the parameters for like
breakfast is
Like,
7:30.
well, you guys don't need like
subscription API.
like I eat all my meals here.
Yeah, no. I mean, you live nearby, right? You have the long commute.
That's the best things of like
Is there even a ferry after like 7?
yeah, there was like drops.
Are you feeling that way
So it's like
Oh, yeah.
Subscription.
That was right, I can't remember.
better than the concept.
From us, that it not be.
Like talking to the API or. Does this seem to correspond to the API? Maybe use the items instead.
Oh,
It makes sense, but I was just kind of curious, but
This is the way.
How do you get towards
Chicago?
Nice walk.
Yeah.
Good exercise.
Yeah, Mom was like, you came back for the snacks.
Oh, okay.
What do you buy?
It's probably just some vestigial.
Hey, but I bet he's paying a lot more rent than.
Yeah.
It could be commission.
I bet your apartment complex has a lot of those kind of things. All the newer ones.
Yeah, I mean, like those are super important.
Pointer, like.
Yeah, I ended up just getting an exercise bike in my apartment.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Unidiomatic,
It's gonna help you like minimize
Like, I think-
the overhead of where like it's innovative.
The other amenities are
Users is like technical mechanism is like
rooftop lounges and stuff like that. Like that's usually
Well, so this is actually.
I guess this is more things.
My friend, moved to a place that has a rooftop and they threw a party and immediately got in trouble the next day. People.
Right. Well, I think also
So
for
they're like, yeah, you can have 3 guests per day. You have like 60 people. Oh, it's a big rooftop. Right, so it has a view of the switched out and everything.
So I don't know if that's.
And a gym, a rooftop gym. But it's a really small gym, but it's still a nice door.
Yeah, most of them.
I mean, that's all you need, right? I mean, you don't need a lot. It's not like it's.
Some places even do like fitness lessons.
Yeah, that's true. The nicer, the more high.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
he's working.
But generally, yeah, it's pretty easy to get up to speed. Even though it's like enormous, but just Google what you heard, search his page.
You want to try 3?
Let's see if I can.
You think the text message should go here in the bottom of your?
So if everything's set up as form data, whether like,
How do you embed code?
Yeah, and then how do I create a?
oh no, because all the API keys are sent in the header, so there's no like CSR.
Oh, it adds the button already.
Wait, is there an integration currently?
Just a minute.
Haven't started yet, but yeah, it'll go.
Like potentially can connect to other investors.
Well, so I'm building a monetized platform for an open source project that was already written in Go. And there'll be a bunch of APIs that'll interface with it. So it kind of makes sense to do those in Go, and then I don't know, I just like Go in general.
That's fair.
It's not for everybody, but just the static. Oh, wait, actually, sir, you're on the CLI. Can I ask you, like, what is used for your Linux packages? Because, like, right now, I just have like a binary you can download.
Do you mean in the package manager or just like the binary itself?
For the package manager, like, so we used to build like your dev and RPM.
We're using a service called BitTray. Okay. And it uploads to BitTray, and then that builds third-party apps basically. Okay. So you have to add the actual content to your local install.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of like on the fence between that. BitTray or some sort of, or like there's one called Go Releaser or something.
So we use Go Releaser.
I'm pretty proud of myself.
Right. So it'll build a binary like a system.
When I'm learning stuff, just for fun.
I mean, hey, it's a pretty good like way to immediately know like, okay, cool, there's tons of content, images you can choose from, videos.
Thousands of songs. Literally.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, I don't know how to, I'm learning SQL, and what I really want is, you know, the SQL playgrounds. I want one that's for Dolly songs.
It was a bit of
And I don't know, like, I know Wikipedia probably has the most comprehensive list of her songs, her website only has 800. What I don't know is how to get that. I think I can figure out how to scrape Wikipedia and get it all set up in my SQL using SQLite or something. But I don't know how to get it. Like, do you have any? I guess there's like some fundamental facts that I'm missing.
I mean, you can make like, I imagine you can just make your own like Dolly API kind of thing.
Right.
And then it's just for you to kind of like play around and just do like all your fun data.
Yeah.
Sure, really good, yeah.
Yeah, you think so? Okay, then maybe I'll actually do it.
Yeah, really great. Kind of want to do something like that now.
You should. Who would you do it with?
Right now, I don't know. There's a good one I found. There's like something like Kanye quotes, where it's just like a Kanye quote generating API. There's there's gotta be one.
Priorities.
I got this teeny tiny one using just a basic JSON file with Lizzo lyrics, so I can text a number and it
Also really
responds
good.
with a random Lizzo lyric and a little emoji.
That's
But
pretty
it's
great.
really basic. Thank you. It's working.
Yeah, that's
Like,
wonderful.
That's really, really great.
Is this a, what do you?
It's a monthly subscription.
That's great.
Demos that I do. But yeah, it was really easy.
Was it?
Fulfilling.
Was it? Okay, good.
I'm just gonna go
Seriously,
there.
was it actually?
Yeah, no, the samples were really easy to follow, and it was helpful that there were comments to the docs directly as well. Yeah.
It's like our new engine.
I feel like I learned them now. I don't know if I even knew about samples when I was here.
No, it's
Yeah,
just,
I love it.
yeah.
I'm good. I'm working on a lot of really fun things. Starting a lot. I have a second round interview next week at a startup. They told me I need to learn Bible.
For which role?
It's a support role, which I told I probably should do, but I have someone else involved to transition to full engineering role today.
Awesome.
And I've heard people strive for that too.
Yeah, totally. It's a thing.
Like
Yeah.
a thing I should try for.
Also like in a startup environment. It's just like, well, it's enormous optionality. Figuring out what you want to work on. So you come in the door and then just get into it. Yeah. Which company is it?
They do some branding software actually, which is really.
That makes sense,
that's
that you
kind
have
of
like
my
the right background. Yeah, yeah. You know your audience, yeah.
Different audience. I also got really lucky and met Chloe Content and Joe, and we've been partnering on a lot of stuff, and that's made me think, oh, maybe DevRel is a thing after I have some years under my belt. After I, feel like I actually have more techniques ones, or I'm
Yeah, it's a very great brain.
How are you doing? How are things?
We're good. Like it's our team now is we have like Singapore, Boston, Seattle, San Francisco. And we have only 3 people. I think. So it's like now we have like a team, which for let's be a little more strategic. That's great. Yeah. Chris.
Yeah. I was excited to even see workshops because, like, I don't remember start doing workshops
That's
when
right.
I was there.
That's right. Yeah. Things, yeah. So this is if you ever want to chat about stepping into yeah. So nice to see you. Yeah.
Okay, keep it.
I'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm at.
I did check it. That's really great.
Yeah. It's like my favorite part of it, but I get versatility. Which is funny because the new Pixelbook that just released doesn't have this.
Really want to
Yeah. It's also like $350 cheaper, so they're trying to attack a different segment.
the metadata.
A couple things to point out. Want to use the rest of this time just as Q&A if anyone has any questions to ask up here, as well as to take the survey of the workshop. Bit.ly billing_survey to give us some feedback to see how we can improve and do this again. And then the other thing is we also have the Stripe developers YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. So if you're interested in more content like this, you want to be able to consume it without having to come here in person, then you can go to our YouTube and check out the Stripe developers channel and subscribe there. And really thank you for participating. It's been awesome to help all of you and see that all of you got the subscriptions created and actively back. So opening up, if anyone has any questions.
You were going to show how to clear out the test data?
Oh, yeah, thank you. One of the questions was how to clear out all of this test data. So if you go to the dashboard and in the settings, data, erase data.
Whenever you search for this, we used to have it in developers. Where would that be? Integration?
Data.
Yeah, data.
Clear test data.
Right here at the bottom. So it's like settings, you scroll down, data, and then all the way down, delete all test data. And there's this model that like kind of confirms to you like the number of objects you have by type. We should see that in a second. The way it's taking long into account, but it should say like how many customers and things like this you have, and then you can start deleting the data.
I've made a lot of test data.
There you go. So yeah, you have like 11,000 test objects. All of these categories.
Don't delete all my barbecue sales.
So we won't delete that.
I'm really excited about how many sales.
Well, you're right. We should make it easier, I think, to test and delete quickly because I think it's fairly hidden unless you really know what's moving.
Right. Oh, yeah, this is Ramon. He's the lead of dev relations here at Stripe. So if you have any questions too.
About anything really.
Any part of
API, anything. I mean, billing obviously, that's also any part of the API that cares about.
Can you explain more on the taxation integration, how we can do, or you have already integrated here, the tax thing that we can implement?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. Do you want to cover that, Chris? Or do you want to talk?
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's all you.
I'm not super familiar with the European version and flavor of what we have on tax, but we do have a few different tax integrations. So it depends like what you're trying to sell, for instance, but we do have a few integrations with like TaxJar, Avalara that you can use if you want to for tax integrations. In fact, you want to pull it up?
What specifically did you want to know with tax?
What would you sell essentially on billing?
Currently, we'll start with the US only, but surely we'll have sales in the Europe also. So how their taxation and actually our base will be US only. So they are doing the transaction in the euro. So how it will make it settle down on the USD.
Yep.
So any taxation of that particular country. So how we can handle that all stuff.
Yep, I think Tara would be.
Yeah, so on your invoice.created webhook, you have what's called our 1 hour window between when your invoice is issued as draft and when it's finalized. Unfortunately, outside of orders, we don't have a way to like hook into like Avalara and TaxJar, but what you can do is hook into Avalara and TaxJar based off of that webhook and then find the rate for whatever
state, city.
Whatever state, city, whatever nexus the customer has. And the important point is it's where the customer is, not where the product is.
Which webhook again?
It's invoice.created. Okay. And so that's probably like the most important webhook because that's the one that opens up the 1 hour window where you can add like line items to your invoice before it gets charged. You can't do it on the first invoice, but any subsequent invoice, you can listen to invoice.created. So at that point, you'd like look up the tax provider and then you can use, we have a tax rates API that allows you to basically attach that tax rate to the invoice.
Okay, so that will be automatically taken care by the whatever the tool or.
You'll have to look up the tax rate with the provider, but that would be the hook that you would use to do that.
So in that case, you need like a geolocation and the.
You need to know where your customer is located. You have to know the like state or country where the customer is located, because you'll pass that data to either Avalara or TaxJar in order to get the rate back.
That means like in the customer when he's doing the transaction.
Yes.
That moment what the location is.
I'm sorry.
The one is like the
customer. Client. Yeah, that's correct. The customer that's on that current invoice, that's the one you'll have to look up what their location is. So you have to store. There's actually a second piece of information you need outside of the location, which is the product ID. So you'll need to know what product they're purchasing. You'll have that because you'll have the invoice.
Actually, I also have to match the product with that Avalara.
Yeah, so Avalara, the way that they work is your products are matched to codes, tax codes, and you need to pass the tax code and the customer's location in order to, and the amount to calculate what the rate should be.
In case like it's a subscription model, so customer could be in a different country when the actual transaction is happening.
Yeah, it's wherever the customer's location is.
At the current moment.
Well, where basically it's usually where they consume it.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, you would store that on the customer object itself. You can update those details at any point in time with the customer API, but ideally you just pull it right off of the customer object, and then you get the tax code off of the product. You send that to Avalara, they'd send you back tax rates. You attach those tax rates to the invoice, and we calculate how much tax you have.
So you said that does that not work with the first invoice? Or?
So for the first invoice, it's paid automatically. So you'd either have to attach the tax rates to the subscription, which will propagate down to the invoice. Actually, that's the only way you can do it. So you'd have to look it up before you actually submit it or like subscribe the customer to a subscription, and then you'd attach those tax rates to the subscription, which would propagate down to the invoice. If you don't remove the subscription's tax rates, though, they will copy to every subsequent invoice. So that's just like a bit of nuance there.
So then that will be as a manual process of adding it first time and then removing it.
Yeah, unless you know the tax rates won't change, then you can just set it on the subscription and leave it alone. But
and then for the second time onwards, the Avalara will whatever the tool is take care of.
Yeah, if you're gonna use a provider, it's probably better to look it up every time. Because the rates change. It's like time zones, right? So tax rates change roughly a couple times a year. Per region.
So basically then we have to have manual watch on the what is going on and then accordingly we have to change it. It's not that tool will take care of it. This got changed and accordingly it will pass us the code that okay, this one.
That's right. I mean, yeah. So now it'll happen automatically if you handle the webhook. You'll just have to wire it in.
Okay. Yeah, slash web. And the tax thing that has been provided here to add the tax, so that is just the simple, in the billing also I see that tax rates are, we can define and create some tax. So what-
Yeah. So you can define tax rates and just save them. So if you know they're not gonna change regularly, you can just define the tax rate and like attach the tax rate to like your invoice or your line
So we get
items.
attached to it.
It's like a flat rate.
Flat.
You can, yeah, so like, let's say 5% exclusive tax rate, then you get like an ID after you create that tax rate, and then on the invoice in the default tax rates array, you just set that one ID, and that works.
This might be something I can Google, but it might be quicker to just ask. Is there a way, does Stripe have a built-in way for doing like applicable credits to a purchase? So like, say I wanted to do something like Audible, where you know you have a bunch of books and they're different prices, but tied to an account or a customer, I guess in this case, I could also like have a credit that they could use to just validate a purchase regardless of price kind of thing. Or would that like, would I have to use some sort of internal system? Excuse me.
That would be a 100% off coupon.
Yeah. Yeah, check out Stripe, the coupons.
Can you like have like, can a customer have like multiple 100% coupons like that, or?
So you can have one coupon per customer. You can have one coupon per subscription, but like when you issue an invoice, you can only apply one coupon at a time currently. But you can have one coupon per subscription. So if you want it like the first time, you could add like a one-time 100% off coupon. There is a way to do it with a customer balance, but customer balance is like a number. So you'd have to like compute the exact amount. So if you wanted to do percentage based, you probably want to use a coupon as opposed to like using the customer balance.
Okay.
There's also like, you can, if you listen to invoice.created, the webhook, you can also manually add negative line items. We would recommend you don't do that, but that also works.
Any other questions? So just put this link up again, the billing survey. I feel like they give us feedback about the content today, how we can improve it as well. And the YouTube channel, look for the YouTube channel, it's awesome. Be a lot more content like this available here so that you can listen in on different things that are happening if you're interested in new products, new things that Stripe is doing. It's a great place to learn more about it. Thank you for coming again. Thank you in person.
Awesome. Thank you. So you get a key.
More snacks.
Way to
More snacks.